Yo,
All right. Hello.
how's it
Looks like
going?
we are live.
I
Good.
know, I know. I can see a little recording thing up here. The session is being recorded, so that's good. Looks like we might be in audio and video. Hopefully, our backup recordings won't be needed.
That's right. That's right.
All right, and I'm just sending in an invite to James. So I think I'll just start our backup recording. Are you doing your backup recording too?
Yep.
This is live, folks. There's going to be so many ums and ahs and.
That's right. So for everyone listening, just give us a couple of minutes while we eventually sort our stuff out, and we should be good to go.
That's it, all right?
All right. Sounds like everybody is able to hear us, which is a good thing.
Okay, cool.
Just give us 2 minutes. Brad Anderson just said Phil Hawthorne seems to have a thing for ferns, and I think that's hilarious, and I agree.
I'm very excited that summer is starting down here, and so I'm getting into the spirit. So sucks for everyone in the northern hemisphere that's going into winter. So
Yeah, like ourselves, which is not fun, but we have the wonderful Frank joining us. Hey, Frank.
I can't believe that end keynote. Like I'm looking at this countdown. Like there's an hour and 22 minutes left of this conference, and we've got to do a
Recap.
a recap of that and a 1.0 release. Like crazy. All right. Indeed. Well, I mean, Frank, can you, like, with all the announcements you just made, of course it needs to be longer. Of course it needs to
Right?
be longer. What were you expecting, right? Like, all right, so let's see if we can kick this off, I think. Um, I'm recording, you're recording, Rohan?
Yep.
All right, there won't be any, we'll do all the music and that later, so here we go.
That's right.
Wow, live. A bit of pressure, huh?
Carlos got his fingers crossed for surprise guests. It's not that surprising, man. It's I'm excited that you're excited.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. This is episode number 77, I believe. Wow. We are live from the Home Assistant Conference here on Hopin. So joining me as usual, I've got Rohan. Rohan, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is. Like,
hello, good, almost hello. Evening. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I've been up since like 6 a.m. or something to catch as many sessions as I could. It's been awesome. Wow. Okay. So I think let's just get into it, I guess. First of all, I mean, this is a live podcast, so I guess we have to do this live today. But this episode of the Home Assistant Podcast is brought to you by Nabukasa. Wow, we've really stuffed that up. Can you believe it? Like, I've stuffed that up. I'm going to start that again.
1 second in.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily and securely access your local Home Assistant instance remotely without fiddling with any SSL certificates or any router settings. And that's why we pre-record that shit, right? Like,
that's right. That's right. All right.
All right. Good. Go for it, Rohan.
So the cloud strikes again. Kind of. So and Paulus talked about this at the beginning of the segment, at the opening session rather, where he talked about TP-Link, and essentially what happened is they made some beta firmware that basically closed out all of their local APIs and so on. So it sounded like all the users in the UK were no longer able to access their smart switches via local means. So basically what happened is Home Assistant, basically as an organization, Runabukasa and the Home Assistant community basically came together and said, listen, we want this back. Come on, you got to do better, that kind of thing. And essentially they responded and said, yeah, you know what, we'll release some beta firmware, just call or email TP-Link support with the MAC address, and basically they'll manually assign your device this firmware that apparently has that local API back. So that's yeah, I guess that's a good thing. So that's and to Paulus's point, this was sign of the community coming together and really leveraging this large community and the concept of open source and the concept of local control and pushing for everything to have that, right? And applying pressure and to their point, we saw this earlier with Hue, we saw this earlier with a bunch of vendors, Logitech. Right? Logitech, yeah, that's a great one. That one was actually really annoying because they did a couple in a row, which a lot of people were pretty upset about. So
I'm just hoping it is a beta firmware at the moment, so I'm hoping that they'll eventually roll it out and make it a proper release for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of where that sits, and I guess that's a good thing, right? It's a little annoying that I guess you have to go in and email them or contact them rather than that just being there. But hopefully they bring that back into one of their production releases, into their GA releases, and I'm hoping that's just the case now because it's beta. So
yeah. All right, but we don't want to talk about that anymore, do we? Like, that's the boring stuff.
No, I think yeah, that's done.
All right, that's done. All right, so Home Assistant Conference 2020, it was virtual this year. If you weren't able to attend because of obviously the pandemic, I think it actually worked out, or for me at least, being in Australia, being able to actually attend a conference actually worked out pretty decently. There was a range of talks. I think I watched someone automating a fireplace live today. That was fantastic, right? Couldn't go could have gone either way. At least he's got his eyebrows still, so that's always a plus. But I think the big takeaway to come out from the conference today was, of course, that Home Assistant 1.0, which was here finally. We've been talking about 1.0 for like how many years now?
I know.
Right.
It's
and as quick as it came, Frank sort of poo-pooed on that. And I think during the final keynote, they've changed. It's no longer called 1.0. They're now going to a calendar release schedule. So the next version, the version we're talking about today, is 2020.12. And moving forward, that will be the release structure. So year, month. I don't know, Ron, I'm actually pretty impressed with, I think, everyone's got a pretty good, they're confident with Home Assistant now. They're saying, this is good as 1.0, but here's our new release structure.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they've removed the 0 point whatever nomenclature, and I'm good with that. I mean, I think the 0 point whatever makes it feel a lot more beta than it probably is too, right? So, I think in this case, I'm good with this 2020.12.0 as I think the first release. I see somebody saying it's funny, HA will never reach 1.0.
I'm going to take it. We had it for 2 weeks as the beta. I'm technically running right now in my home 1.0.
Same
so I'm
here.
I'm holding on to that.
That's right. I have hit 1.0 and with Home Assistant, and then it's going away after that. But
yeah.
No, which is again, I think, and we saw a lot of the announcements, and we'll talk about some of these things in a little bit as well. But this to me is, usable at this point to a I guess, a novice user or someone that's not technical, right? I think, again, features like Blueprint and things like that were just announced where,
Yeah,
I think that's key.
absolutely.
But along with that now, what's happening as well is to go with the nomenclature and to go with standard cadences and releases, along comes a monthly release cycle. So, what that means is great, 2020.12, 2021.1, whatever that release cycle is, that's really starting to go and move to a 3-week release cycle, from a 3-week release cycle to a monthly release cycle. And I think Frank mentioned this in the closing session, which was, it's a little easier for people to follow rather than needing a calendar basically to keep track of that. I know, Phil, for ourselves, we subscribe to the release calendar that the home assistant team puts out, and that's how we know when we're recording episodes to some extent, right? We have no idea just because of all of this stuff that's happening as well. Just because it's 3 weeks is kind of an odd time to have, right? 2s make sense, 4s make sense, but
3 I think was a bit, because you could never really, it was just that odd number, right? But I think beta moving forward is still only going to be a week. So if Home Assistant is releasing on the first Wednesday of the month now, the beta will be released on the last Wednesday of the previous month.
That's right. And Chris Lawson kind of came up with a good thing in the chat there, which is, does this mean podcasts are only once a month? So Phil, why don't you talk about what's happening with that?
Right. So obviously we have tried to follow the Home Assistant release as much as we can, launching on the same day as the release comes into. So what we're planning to doing next year is keeping with that. So there will be a monthly podcast episode, but we're going to just rejig the episodes a little bit. So I think as Home Assistant moves into bigger releases, we're going to need more time to talk about Home Assistant, especially if there's big, monthly features that are coming out, like blueprints and everything like that. Like the time we talk about, the monthly release will be, an hour into an episode and then getting to a guest. So I think moving forward, we're going to try to do a release episode, and then that's also going to give us more time during the month to pre-record and do other recordings like our spotlight episodes, and I think guest-focused episodes. So we can really get, diving deeper into your, whoever is on the show with us. We've had some great guests, even in the last 6 months where we've been like, damn, we could keep talking to you. We're already over an hour and we could keep talking to you for another hour at least, right? So allowing us to go in and really, pick people's brains about that automation that we can't go as further enough in that, half hour, 45 minutes that we're usually left with, I think is going to be great. And plus, we've had so many emails coming through to us, to feedback@hasspodcast.io, oh, you should do a spotlight on this, spotlight on that. And Rohan and I are like, oh, we just haven't had the time to do it. So I think monthly releases are going to really help us make more episodes for the podcast as opposed to less, I think.
Yeah, and Phil and myself have kind of gone back and forth a few times with this as well, right? In terms of, how do we actually do this? We both of us want to get out way more spotlight episodes than we actually have gotten out. But it's just, again, it's a matter of time, right? Both of us have full-time jobs, which keep both of us extremely busy. So, I think this is kind of a bit of motivation to do that, right? And kind of go back to that same cadence we used to have, which used to be every 2 weeks. And then when we do every 2 weeks, and at that point, it's, 1 week might be release, 1 week might be special episodes, whatever that is, right? So I think that just allows us a lot more flexibility in terms of time as well. This podcast, as little time as it takes in our day, it actually does take up quite a bit of time, and more so for Phil, who, credit to him, who does all the editing and everything as well, right? And typically puts most of the show notes, if not all the show notes, together as well. I just kind of show up and usually still mostly asleep. And
yeah, I mean, you do draw the short end of the stick for when it comes to having to wake up early, so I think that's fair.
Yeah. So.
And of course, as I said, this is a live podcast, so we are going to have mistakes everywhere. But do you want to bring in James? I don't know if can you James, are you there? Can you talk?
Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, James. So we've got James here today because, we've obviously got people in the chat, and Rohan and I have got so many things on our list here to get through. So James is going to be in the chat answering questions, or, if you've got any questions for us, James is going to collate them all. And I think at the end of the podcast, we'll have a little Q&A session with everyone, a bit of a debrief. I know I want to talk about, a lot of stuff that's happened in the conference today. So we're just going to keep it free for all. We will kick James out and pull people in as required. If you want to chat, and then bring James back in, of course. If you want to come on and chat as well, if you're comfortable with that. So yeah, let James know in the chat if you're happy with that, James, of course.
Yeah. Let's use the hashtag spotlight tonight. So if you've got something to really throw at Phil and Rohan, let's use hashtag spotlight. Keep the Q&A going in the comments. There's some fantastic interaction going on there, but hashtag spotlight if you really want the attention.
Perfect. And Frank just said he'll bump the limit, so that's greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you so much, Frank. Well, I'm looking at that time. I'm like, I'm stressing about the time, but no, if Frank's got our back, yeah. So that's good.
Love it. All right.
Go for. I think Rohan, do it. Just drop it.
Let's do this. Home Assistant Blue. This is something I think Phil and myself we've kind of been pretty excited about when this announcement dropped and we found out, and so there's a lot to unpack here. So it's based on the O2 it's based on the Odroid N2 Plus with 4 gigs of memory. Comes wrapped in a really nice limited edition metal case, made from aluminum, it sounds like, which is a limited run, and which actually looks really, really awesome. And I was just watching the chat, and as they were announcing that on the main stage, and people were like, "Hardware? Are you gonna make a box? Are you what's happening?" Right? And
Apple's one more thing, right? Where's the one more thing coming in this announcement?
That's right. And I think to me that's it's that excitement, right? And I'm also kind of excited for it, and I do think I'm going to get one of those. Again, whether I do really like my setup right now, so maybe I won't use it. I'll probably just get one for the sake of having it, and I do really think it's really cool. They do say it's 22 times faster than the Raspberry Pi, which I've been pretty notorious for mentioning how much I don't dislike the Raspberry Pi as a platform. I dislike Home Assistant on my Raspberry Pi just because of all the issues I used to have with it, which is now a little different, right?
Because I think what's happening now is that you've outgrown the Pi, right? And I think this is Home Assistant in general as an ecosystem has now outgrown the Pi.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually, you outgrow your NAS, right, as well. So
totally.
It's nice to have a nice device that can cope with this.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
eventually,
exactly
you outgrow whatever you're using, and of course, that's what we can expect.
Yeah, exactly. What else? It's about $140 US. Available from resellers around US and Europe, which is pretty neat. Comes with Home Assistant pre-installed, so you don't have to deal with that. And to me, this also lends closer to that 1.0 experience, right? Which is if like I'm just thinking, if I take my dad or mom into this, they have no idea how to install an OS onto an SD card and then run it that way, and then maybe change it to an external hard drive, whatever that is. They have no clue how to do that, right? And meaning I have to do that. But if they did want to get started on something like this, it's hey, great, go online, buy this box, and off you go, right? It comes installed. It's able to handle whatever, so you don't need to deal with, hey, how do I scale up tomorrow as well, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, just that full out-of-the-box experience, right? Plug it in, turn it on, and it just works. I think that's something that has been really missing in Home Assistant. And now looking back, you can see how people got to, how we've got to this stage where there is hardware being sold by Home Assistant, because, the front page of Home Assistant has always been, download this for the Raspberry Pi. Here is a single install SD image, right? You just etch this to an SD card and Home Assistant will boot up. We've had HAS.io, Home Assistant OS, and this is clearly now the next logical step. And I think doing a limited edition run, obviously, pandemic has sort of put some brakes on how fast this thing could move. But I do think that a limited edition run is also a good way for the Home Assistant team to see how popular this is going to be, right? So
yeah, exactly. And I think that's the, I think that's at the end of the day, I think that's what it comes down to, right? And hopefully we do see this kind of taking off. And I know it's a limited edition thing, but I'm kind of hoping it's not, right, to some extent.
Yeah. I hope it continues.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And Andrea's making me chuckle here, going, "This is a terrible gift because people will just fall into the rabbit hole." And man, you're so right.
Oh yeah, can you imagine you give someone the gift and it's literally opening up someone to an addiction, right? The first one's for free, and then you get them in this addiction. So you can. What was that?
Sorry, what was that, James?
You're then on speed dial for the next 6 months once they get ramped up.
That's true. That's true. Hey, should I do Philips Hue or should I do IKEA Trad-Free? What do you recommend? Oh man, where do we go from here, right?
I don't know how to nicely say I don't care which one you pick.
But, yeah, exactly. I did also appreciate that for those that do want to use or do want to buy, the hardware separately, once again, Home Assistant is really keeping up with that open source community, and they're publishing 3D models of the cases that you can print.
Yeah.
Obviously being plastic won't be that nice metal premium experience you'll get from buying directly from Nabucasa or Home Assistant. But, once again, great to see that they're pushing back and giving people the option that, you don't have to give $1 to Nabucasa if you really are that grumpy about it, right? You can print your own 3D printed case and get it in any color. You can choose your own color then, as long as you can obviously print it from your 3D printer.
Exactly, which I think is a great option as well, right? And I again, people have different limits, different whatever in terms of what they want to spend on this stuff, and great, right? Hopefully this helps curb your addiction a little bit when it comes to home automation. Which, again, I'm not going to be one to say, hey, that's right or wrong or whatever. If that's what works for you, fantastic, do it, right? And I do think it's great that people do that. So. And as much as I don't have a 3D printer myself, and I've been wanting to get one, a friend of mine just got one, and I told him I'm basically borrowing it for basically whenever
as much as you want. Yeah,
yeah. I'll buy my own spools and stuff, but yeah,
you're going to be on Thingiverse looking for random plastic things you can just print for the fun of it.
Oh, it's the worst. I mean, the main reason I wanted to get one is I got some ESP 32s, and basically one of them is just basically controlling all of my Xiaomi plant sensors and bringing that into Home Assistant.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted basically a case for that, so it's not ugly. And it's just right now it's literally just a USB charger plugged into it and just sitting there on a table, and it looks pretty bad. I think it looks cool, but everybody else thinks it looks pretty bad. So, that's it's okay. Fine, wrap it in a 3D printed case, whatever. So, yeah.
All right. So I think before we get to our Q&A, let's break down some highlights from 1.0.
Yes.
My apologies. 2020.12. And I think the big release to come is Blueprints. Now, this is something that I think is going to be an absolute game changer. So Blueprints are they're shareable automations, and you can put in basically placeholders. So if you want to share a blueprint or an automation that you have of a light turning on, you can then share a blueprint that can dictate where people need to put in their entity ID for a binary sensor, like a motion sensor, and their light to turn on or turn off. It uses the Home Assistant UI. So once they've put in their blueprint, users can then, or whoever downloads your blueprint can then go in and select, yes, I want to put this motion sensor for this and this light for this, and it just works. I think this is the next evolution. Previously we've had GitHub sharing gists, YAML code in forum posts, blog posts.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that as well. I think this is going to be the next evolution of, really basically one-click installs of people being able to install automations. There's already some automations up on the community forums. You can, and I really think they've done a great job here. Just paste a URL to either a GitHub gist or I think a community post into your Home Assistant instance, and it will download the blueprint for you. One thing that I am really looking forward to, and I hope they implement this in the future, is I think blueprints could be expanded to Home Assistant packages. I think, I have one of my automations that a lot of people know me for is my not so binary presence detection. And that uses a whole bunch of input selects or input helpers, device trackers, and automations. If I could package that up as a single blueprint and you were then able to just have a select a device tracker and it would create a input select for you and it would do all the other magic for you, that would be an absolute game changer. So I really hope, obviously this is just the first release, but I do hope I can see blueprints rolling out to a lot more than just automations and scripts.
Yeah, and to me, it's also one of those. It's a great way of. I mean, Phil, how many times have you helped me on some of my automations, right? With like, there's so many times when I'm sitting there struggling with templates and whatever, and it'd be kind of cool if you could take that. And I mean, you and I talk to each other often enough, and so you'll just ping me whatever. But it'd be cool if you can just take it, push it to GitHub, because it might be more than just me that's struggling with that same thing, right? And a lot of my automations aren't uncommon. It's like, hey, tell me when something opens, tell me when something closes, whatever, right?
Yeah, what was that one we did the other week? Like you needed an alert when your back door was left open for 5 minutes or something? Like
my garage door, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, with actionable notifications and things like that. I think that's a great use case for that, right? And fine, we take that, we package it up and push it up as a blueprint because, fine, you help me one-on-one, but this exact same thing might help another 100 people.
Absolutely. And then if you think about like Home Assistant has had cookbooks on the website for donkey's years, right? Like this is going to be taking cookbooks to the next level. Like literally download a recipe, put your ingredients in, and you're away.
That's it.
Think of your blog post, Phil, with your washing machine and dishwasher reminder and others that publish YouTube videos and blog posts, just having a link to that blueprint. But that loops back nicely to, Rowan, your point about Thingiverse, right? What about a Thingiverse for blueprints? What about just touching on a point that Rick's touched on? A UI or an experience where you can go in and find these more easily within the community. So whether there's any thoughts or appetite to an improved experience to discover and find those blueprints that others have that others have shared.
Absolutely, I actually think I saw in the one because I was watching the live stream of the final keynote, and the chat was going off its chops. Right, there was just million messages a second, but I did manage to get a blink of one message and that said, what about a store for blueprints, right? And then I was thinking, well, that's a great opportunity, right? Like if you could create a whole bunch of automations and potentially either give them away for free or sell them, and then Home Assistant, the project, can take a 30% clip like Apple, right? Like there's another revenue stream for Nabucasa. There's a good incentive for people to share blueprints and create high quality blueprints, and you sell them for $1 or something, and if it helps, save someone a few hours trying to work out how to get this automation to work properly.
Sure.
But then maybe I'm thinking of a 2025. That's on the 2025 roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't know if that's kind of where they want to go with it, right? In the sense that it's like that's also a lot of work away from core has that they'll be putting in. Yes, but I mean, at the end of the day, I love the whole concept of blueprints, right? I mean, it beats sharing something as a gist or whatever it is. I think that's pretty cool.
Bob's just asked in the comments, where are blueprints going to be available? I believe there is a community on the community forums. There is a special forum for them that you can access them from. And I believe there's going to be either somewhere in the Home Assistant website, similar to a cookbook, there will be a list where you can find a whole bunch of gists of where people have uploaded them to GitHub as well.
So in your Home Assistant install, if you go to configuration and blueprints, you'll see all of the blueprints. You'll see whatever's there is there, and then underneath you'll see discover more blueprints. And if you click that, that basically takes you to that same community that Phil was talking about.
Yeah.
And you can see again, like the one that they demoed, saying with the 5-button remote for lights, great, it's there, and you can take it from there.
Troy and Bob have both posted the link from the community, so let's put that in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
All right. Another thing, Rohan, that I was actually really excited to see in 1.0 is the ability to disable devices. And this doesn't seem like a huge thing, but when it comes to, the time of the year, it's Christmas time, having a device, I have a Switch, right? And everything, all my automations are set up correctly. They're fine. I have a Christmas tree light switch, and then I put it away for a year, and it sits in my Home Assistant entities marked as unavailable for, 11 months out of the year. So being able to just, toggle it away for 11 months, I think is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And I think typically what the old process was is you disabled that entity, right? Where, and one device might have multiple entities, right? So as an example, if you have a motion sensor, it might have a thermometer in it. It might have obviously the motion sensor itself, and so on and so forth. So there might be multiple entities associated with that. I think that's where it kind of comes in.
Also helps when you're deving in production, right? And you've got a couple of half a dozen ESP home boards that are on and off whilst you're building out ideas, and just to be able to mark them as disabled is...
James, you're doing it wrong. Production is development. What are you talking about?
Right. That's right.
It's on my old...
That's right. That's a DevOps philosophy, at least, right? Somebody asked, Barney asked, is there going to be versioning for blueprints? I don't know. That would be kind of cool. I think that would be interesting, but I don't know, can you make versions of your own blueprint? I'm sure you can. But will that auto update to everybody else? I don't know.
I guess it also then leads into a point of what happens if, I've done a blueprint of a feature that Home Assistant no longer supports in, 3 years' time, and people are still trying to use it. Will you have the ability for a blueprint to say, I'm compatible up to this version of Home Assistant, sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and I mean, a breaking change happens, whatever, and now templates work differently. Great. Well, does that mean that my blueprint is broken for everybody? And if my blueprint is broken for everybody, does that get traversed back? That's a great question, Barney. I have no idea.
Time will tell.
That's right. So now entities can be assigned to areas. So, areas was this concept that was brought in, like a year ago, maybe more, something like that. It's been a while. And it's funny because I always add my entities to areas, but not entities. I always add my devices to areas, and I don't actually do anything with them. Or do anything with the areas, but what's that?
Appreciate the hard work now, Rowan. Appreciate the hard work.
Absolutely. Now there's actually good reason for it, right? Especially with the blueprint things, and in the demo you saw some of that as well. For those of you listening after the fact, I mean, go back and try and watch that. It's in the final closing session on how the blueprints work, and the areas actually come in pretty handy.
Yeah, and I think this having entities finally in areas is something that was just that missing piece of the puzzle for me. I've never really personally used areas because most of the things were using YAML, so they weren't proper first-class devices, so they weren't being able to be assigned to an area. But now, with entities being able to assign to an area, it's much neater. So I think I think
that's more useful.
So I've got a really neat use case for areas and the mapping that is coming, and that is I'm moving home, right? So if all my areas were correctly assigned and I choose to put 5 lights in one room rather than 2, my automations hopefully will still work just the same as one room with 5 versus 2, right? we'll see where this goes. But I'm really interested to see how that whole mapping works and benefited from it in this example of moving home.
Yeah.
So would you be doing something like, if the area, like if a living room motion sensor goes off, then turn the lights on in the area living room, for example? Is that something that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, or the devices are tampered within that area. If you've got zones or something that perhaps you're working with a couple of areas that equal the ground floor, first floor. Just nice not to have to hard shift all of the entities and every automation if you just concentrate on an area and map it through the UI.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And Lewis in the chat actually brought up a great point of, my alarm system device is in the basement, but all of its entities are scattered all over the house. Obviously, you might have door open close sensors, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. That might be something happening there too. So I think this really helps in that case too. So.
And I know there's been a lot of love for the Zigbee to MQTT project, and something that's come out in 1.0 is the ability for MQTT scenes to now be supported in Home Assistant. So I believe Zigbee to MQTT is either in beta or it's just being released. They can now control Zigbee scenes. So you can have lights, a group of lights turning on and off based on a scene on the Zigbee protocol. That can now be exposed to Home Assistant via a MQTT scene, which is just going to make that integration a whole lot better. And I think there's going to be a lot of other potential use cases, especially with Home Assistant using Z-Wave to MQTT. So as that starts getting fleshed out, you could have Z-Wave scenes, Z-Wave, device groups being controlled through these MQTT scenes. So it's probably a pretty niche feature to be added, but I think it's one that a lot of Zigbee to MQTT users will find very useful.
Yeah, and you used that, right, Phil? Or
I did, but I've moved over to the Decon stick now, just for
that's right.
Better. Right. I found the CC22531 a little bit finicky. Couldn't get it to mesh properly with all my mishmash of Osram gear, Xiaomi gear, but the Decons just works perfectly.
Yeah, and apparently on the Decons software, you can also change channels and stuff like that, which is really nice too. Because I know ZHA is lacking on some of that stuff. Really? I heard that that's something that they're looking at. I don't know how true that is or not, but on the ZHA front, because right now for you to change the channel, like it's not in the UI, right? It's like a 30-step process that I looked at, and I was like, I'm not dealing with it. I'm good with it being half a second behind or whatever. I'm fine with that. It's not worth it. That. Yeah. So now it can be changed via YAML. I think that was more recent, but I thought there may be something else behind that. I have to revisit that, Andrea. I think you might be right there.
Definitely via YAML.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to leave. So that, I think, as I said, is a huge release. So we are doing a live podcast recording today. So I think it's only fair that, people are in the comments, throw some questions. If you want to come up, we can sort of add you into the call as well. James, what have we got from the comments so far?
I think you've both been doing a good job at picking them up as we've been going on. There's a lot of discussion about blueprints, which we've covered, and I think the main ones that there's mainly the where do I go to get them, how will they be versioned, which we've all covered. Blue's been an interesting discussion. So what's in this production run? If there's such a sellout, will there be future runs and more opportunity to get a device such as that? And I'll keep scanning, but I think
definitely.
you're both on it.
Well, so I think we don't know how much is going to be in the limited run. I don't think Paulus mentioned it in the keynote. If he did, I must have missed it. Frank's probably in the comments. He's probably like, I don't know how many numbers are there, suckers.
I did ask.
There you go. See,
there you go.
So I think, it does give that sense of I need to get one straight away, though, doesn't it? I think that's the the idea of it, and I don't mind that. But I don't honestly. I think if this is going to be successful, if they sell out within, a month or whatever, I think there is no reason for them not to do it, unless it's just becomes too much of a hassle and they don't want to become a hardware company.
And I think that may be why it's a limited run too, right? So I think I think that's a big thing there.
Yeah, definitely.
Somebody else asked, are we getting Troy Hunt soon? Working on it.
Troy and more of Phil is a general theme. More Troy and more Phil.
There you go.
More blog posts from both.
That's right.
I mean, it's just a podcast, right? I've got so many things to do, right? Like, I wish I had more time. Actually, Ryan and I, we say the same thing. We look at each other's blogs and we're like, man, I haven't posted in a while. Then everyone's like, yeah. And then we look like, fuck, it's been years, man. Like, we've got to get that. Like, we've got to sort our shit out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I look at my contribution back at the beginning of COVID, middle of COVID through the summer, and I'm on it. And then there's this huge disruption in my world with work and projects that I'm involved in. And suddenly I just disappear. And my life is just full of those roller coasters of wanting to contribute, actually contributing, and then disappearing from this amazing community. And if I could just organize things where I could just contribute at a more regular pace and provide some detail and effort back into this evening's been fantastic to see what folks have contributed, and just to contribute a great post or an article that helps others is exactly what we're all here for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And James, you've been really stepping up this year. Like, I've seen like your Halloween, your Twitter has just been like, I always see your tweets. I'm like, yeah, like James, like slow down. You're making us look bad here, right?
Yeah. See, the tweeting and the Instagram is the easy part, right? But writing an article that actually makes sense and is easy and for fun.
It doesn't have a typo in your YAML, or it doesn't.
Typo. That's just to learn. That's for others to learn from. But
exactly.
It's been able to put in the effort, that curated experience from start to finish. And I've had some fun with my daughter. A lot of this stems. We talked back in March. A lot of the fun that I get from Home Assistant is bringing that experience to my daughter and stuff. And Halloween was a really fun experience, automating a COVID contact-free candy dispenser and stuff, and even more recently with a reward system for my daughter, so she earns points on a star for doing well, and eventually she gets 5 points on the star and she gets a credit. And I've created this whole Home Assistant currency of credit, and we can transfer stars to screen time on her iPad or her
amazing
Nintendo Switch or money, right? And it's really
this
fun.
Is going to be the new Bitcoin.
You have outsourced parenting to Home Assistant. Like, that is how much faith you have in Home Assistant right now to raise your child.
That's right. So somebody up above actually asked as well. This is when we first joined, or when you first joined, James. I think I saw somebody. I apologize. I don't know who it was. What are you doing to basically gamify your chores now at this time, right? And in all honesty, I think that's a great problem to solve right there, right? Is that you're solving.
Andre's helped massively with his contribution to the tag solution, right? But there's a series of things that we've got to do with kids, and that's the whole home learning and schoolwork. But there's a sense of chores that we want our kids to contribute and participate with and get them appreciating, but moreover just appreciation of others around us. So rather than, can I have a drink, Daddy, can I get a drink and would you like one? That kind of behavior. And I've put a series of tags around the house so that I can scan. She's got one on her iPad. She can bring it to me and I tap it with my phone and it brings up this credit system. Would you like to debit or credit the account, right? And then I can give her a little point for doing well. But equally, I've got a warning mode and she gets two warnings, and then the whole point system resets itself and back to zero. But it's fantastic to see how well that's improved, the contribution she has and the reality of chores and her needing to contribute to things.
I can't wait for her to be able to hack this and give herself like 1 million points and be like, "Oh,
Already
look, I've got
there.
enough points to go to Disneyland. Let's go."
I'm more excited for her to turn this around on you and be like, "Okay, Dad, well, if you don't help me with my homework today, or if you don't do this, then guess what?
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
You're
It's been
losing
like-
TV
yeah,
time."
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, what else
All
we
right,
have?
Ryan, I did see a question there. What are the board games on your shelf?
Oh God, there's actually another full shelf with a stash underneath. I don't know if you can't see it, but the ones you can see are kind of the classics: Monopoly, Category, Scrabble, Settlers of Catan. There's Sequence, which is like a card game. It's less known, but it's a pretty old game. It's basically like a multiplayer card game where you have to kind of come up with like 5 in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Codenames, which is I don't even know how to describe it. It's a lot of fun though. You should look it up and get it. And yeah, we've been really
tick of
into
approval
board
right
games.
there.
That's right. No, we've been really into board games through COVID and stuff because there's only so much TV you can watch. There's only so much of that, and it's just like, oh, it's killing me. So, but yeah, come to think of it, I guess it's not the most because this view is exactly what my customers see too. So, I mean, if they're like, man, this guy just plays games all day. Whatever.
Like, why is my project taking so long, Rohan? Oh, I'm busy with this board game.
Sorry,
over here
guys.
right now.
Catan's like a 4-hour game, and you know. So, but yeah, no, I have a shelf underneath as well, which is just full of other stuff too. So, but yeah, we've been discovering new ones all the time and having fun with it. And yeah.
Meanwhile, while you play that, Rowan, Phil just attends his ferns, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like this guy over here is like, obviously, it just takes up so much water. It's not fake at all. It's not artificial. You know.
That's right.
I have to water it every day.
That's right. He's got a koala there too that he's got to feed and feed the bamboo to or whatever.
We call them drop bears here in Australia, mate. Like, be careful. All right, I'll get you.
Right. Yeah.
So to put you both on the spot and probably detract from your agenda. You've had quite an incredible year. One that's made us more remote than ever with current times. What's your highlights through the year with your episodes? There's a couple that come to mind for me, and that's the use cases of Home Assistant in a non-home sense. So we had Billy back in episode 70 where he was managing his batteries for his gardening and landscaping business. You've had Matt back in episode 66 where he was monitoring industrial equipment, and then there's been countless other examples as well as this evening with the fire station paging system example and a number of others. What stands out for you this year?
I think for me it's just how people are using Home Assistant to aid in working from home. I think the Mac app for Home Assistant came out this year, and just being able to detect, if a webcam is being used, so that that can then toggle lights around the house to say, I'm at work or I'm in a meeting. Those little things for me have been a really good highlight. And I even saw someone posted on Twitter a little box, and I think it was just a Raspberry Pi or Node something in it, and it had 3 lights, for the kids. Dad is in a meeting, I've got my headphones on, or yes, like traffic light, red, green, or yellow. So I think those sort of things have been really cool just to see. Also, like, generally when we do a podcast, it's, I do this, I do my presence and all that. But this year, I think it's really had to change because people have got more time at home, and we've seen a lot more interesting automations come out of that too.
Yeah, and I think exactly, kind of piggybacking on what you said, Phil. There's been a lot of that kind of stuff, and especially with newer like switches and stuff like that. Like one of the it's something I actually saw on Twitter that somebody had made and posted is, somebody did a what is it? I actually have the thing open here. It's leveraging WebEx endpoints APIs for in-home notifications. So basically, if they're on a WebEx, they're Innovelli switches, which have the programmable LEDs on them. Basically, they'll change color. So if you see that the switch is red, don't interrupt me while I'm on a call. Like that kind of a thing, I think is really interesting. And this can kind of be done by whatever. I mean, in this case, this is like this is specifically to WebEx and specifically to Innovelli switches. But I mean, really, the concept is still kind of the same, right? It might be something like a sign. Like I know, Phil, you have typically when you do podcasts, you have like a podcast mode where the lights go red behind you, right? And
correct.
And I have a little Rohan on air sign behind me, which I have not automated, but the idea was for it to be the same thing, right? And or if I'm on a call, same thing, right? And a lot of times what happens is my partner, she'll come down and like wave at me or something if I'm on a customer call because she's not sure, right? And so things like that I think help as well, right? When you are working, so yeah.
James, have you got any reading material for your reward system? Have you got a blog post written up for that yet?
So that's going to be my Christmas write-up, I think. Given the year that I've been running against, there's probably two things for me that I'd like to post, and that's the kind of the way that I've leveraged DSP Home, more recently WLED with the Halloween display and things, but also the star reward system. How I've leveraged tags and stuff for that. But there's other ideas I posted just this evening. Moving into a new property, I want to put a number outside the house and illuminate it, and I'm just going to put some addressable LEDs in that and have a bit of fun. Can I just say
on that, you posted up 2 photos with 13, and one was like nice, and the 2 digits were next to each other. Keep it clean, man. Like, don't put them. What was your thinking having them separate?
The light, I think it comes to life when they're lit and the separation. Maybe the brickwork behind it as well, all the texture and stuff. But I think the vote is together. Without
I think
a
doubt. Clean. Maybe it could have been the angle you had on the photo too. Like not being. It depends how much light can shine around it, I guess too.
Totally. So there will be an article coming, and I'll make sure I share that around. But folks tend to find the content as they.
Can we have a little spoiler? What's the interface for you to deduct and add credits? Are you using Lovelace for that, or have you got like?
No, I've tried to automate it. You know me. I try and do this with as much automation as possible.
Absolutely.
So it's all driven through tags. So the star LED star has a tag sticker on it inside the plastic, so I can read the tag through it with my phone. Florence's iPad has a tag on it, so she can come up and say, look, I've earned this credit, or I've done this. She also has a Magic Cards 3D, not 3D printed, but inkjet printed debit card. So that's her card that she carries around with her in her little bag. So when we're out getting ice cream, she's like, Daddy, can I get an ice cream? And I'll pay for it. I'm like, okay, of course you can. But it's an actionable alert. So as I scan one of those tags, I get an actionable alert that says stars and points, and I've got actions on that to reset the points, add and debit both stars and points, and then put her in a warning mode, which gives her the day to restore faith and correct her behaviour. Otherwise, at midnight that night, she loses the points that she's earned.
And how do you deal with inflation? And
good question. But there is a webhook into a Monzo online digital bank in the UK, and it puts some money into she can debit her stars to a digital savings pot that I've created in my bank account. So it's actual physical money at that point.
Oh my! So so just to confirm, Home Assistant has access to physically move money around based on your point system that you've developed.
Well, yes, yeah. Moving it from my current account to a savings pot, with the beauty of webhooks and the joy that is.
You are a crazy cat, James.
That is a lot of trust, man.
We're
I mean,
talking
I'm guess
pounds, miniature pounds here. But
still,
yeah.
all it makes is a rounding error on your part, and
yes,
those miniature
well,
pounds.
That's right. You're now
Oh.
overdrafted for a couple $1 million, and yeah,
All because your daughter wanted that extra ice cream.
that's
if
right. That's right.
only. I'd love to make that mistake.
Oh.
Working in
Oh, man.
production.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
it. Oh, you must be really glad they released 1.0. Now you can have some faith in that. Oh yeah, I'm actually using proper software, not beta anymore.
That's funny.
All right,
rolled
let's start
beta.
over to the comments. If you've got any questions, we are live here, so
Yeah.
let us know.
I did see Bob had a question. Can you talk about the Mac client, and will there be any other endpoint clients like Windows 10 or Linux to supply sensors we can plot to use or trigger actions?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I don't know.
The problem is everything's community driven. Like the Mac app sort of came out of the community, right? Like it wasn't, Paulus wasn't sitting there going, "Hey, let's make a Mac app," right? Like someone actually did it because they had a use case for it. So I think definitely people that, if someone's good with Windows, James, I don't know if you've got any hookups at Microsoft that might be able to help you out. It definitely could, if the community's there and they can make it, then it just depends on the community.
That's it. And since we had Paulus on the show, I know because he was kind of like, what do you think of it? I'm like, it's cool. And then he was like, that's it, right?
Yeah.
And and I think since then I was like, okay, maybe I should play with this a little bit, and I did, and it is kind of cool, right? I mean, there are sensors that it pulls from your laptop and stuff like that, which I think is really neat. So and I haven't quite figured it out. I am pulling it. I don't know what I'm doing with it yet, but it's there. Right, just to say, okay, this is how much battery, how much whatever, and might be more useful on a more critical device than my personal whatever MacBook. But
yeah,
I guess my number one thing comes to mind is the privacy element. So whether that's the Mac app or other apps, right? If we put that or deploy that app onto our partners' phones or our family phones for them or behalf of them, do they understand the data that's passing from their phone to Home Assistant and what can be accessed as a result of that? And I think it's something that we need to discuss. The privacy element of remaining within our homes and not in the cloud has been forefront, top of mind for Home Assistant. But with all of these clients that connect and send data, there has to be that element of privacy at the forefront of those clients. And while during setup it's obvious and you go through the different warnings that the onboarding experience provides, it's that longer term, the updates brought these other 5 entities or sensors, and that's getting sent to Home Assistant. So I think privacy remains top of mind for me with anything, regardless of the client or platform.
And on the topic of privacy, how do you handle that from your daughter's perspective? Like when I was growing up, like my parents didn't have the ability to put GPS trackers on me, but now, we do have the ability to do that to our children. Is that a concern for you? Like, do you think your daughter has the right to have some privacy from you?
Totally. I'm not tracking position or location at all. Particularly, I have my daughter some of the week, so I wouldn't want to intrude on her mother's life either in that way. So mine's more about making our lives more fun, more exciting, and more embracing that digital age and getting her involved in some of that automation. So we had the star chart on the wall. The principles that I've replaced are the same, except they've been made more consumable and more automated and more accessible across devices rather than just the wall by the front door. So I think Florence is fully aware that when she goes in a room, the lights come on, and that's triggered by presence, whether it's her room or any other room. There's things like the reward system that I've built with her, and she's helped with that. She's been a big part of the edge cases that she throws up. But I think it's about that inclusion factor and working with the family, working with the individuals using it, and making them aware of the nuances of what's going on in the background. And we're talking about a 7-year-old, so some of it she'll nod and agree and go, yes, Daddy, I get it. I get a point if I do this. Maybe later we'll discover that it's all torn up and she won't be earning any points at all. But I think it has to, that privacy part, that inclusion part, has to be a discussion at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question I just noticed here, Rohan, naming of episodes, number 77 or 2020-12 for us?
I don't know. I think
our episode numbers have really become obsolete as of late. The more spotlight episodes we've done, I think there's more episodes than 77 in our feed. I think as we get into next year, episode 78 will be the next release episode, and then 79 will be, potentially a spotlight or going into someone's home sort of deal. So I think, episode numbers will become less important for us.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I don't know about you, Phil. I mean, even for me, it's hard to keep track of hey, this person was on this episode. If somebody was like, oh, this guy on that you had on episode 30, and I'll be like, I got to go look up. Not I'm not forgetting the people. I'm forgetting which person was on which episode, right? So to me, it's less about that. Whereas if you're like, hey, that episode with James, we talked about blah, 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 then I think, it's like, oh, right, yeah, because I know who James is and I know what we talked about. I just don't relate that back to episode 60, whatever, or whatever. Now I have no idea.
The thing with the date, the calendar version that has been introduced is that sense of time in the product, right? So we're talking about automating baths back in March, episode 63 or something. I couldn't tell you when that was, but I know the date roughly because I was joining you with it. But it would be fantastic to correlate episode 77 or 63 with that date and go, right, this is how we've moved on in that year, just a year alone, how things have moved on with Home Assistant, but also the devices that we're working with.
No, totally. And I think Troy found a way to make it more complicated by going 2020.12.77.
Well done, Troy. Thank you for that.
Yeah. The 77 is kudos to you both, right, Rowan and Phil. Thanks for pushing this out every month and every episode, because it's a delight for me to listen and interact with the podcast, and moreover the community aspect that comes on the back of listening to an episode. So more live episodes, more episodes seeing your faces, because you are the show, and then the community that brings it together. So look forward to 2021.
Yeah. I mean, me and Rohan always say that I think we get the best end of the deal because we get to pick people's brains, either in the recording or after the recording, right? Like James, how long did we talk after your episode, right? There was so much we could have added to the episode had we kept recording, right? So, Rohan and I are very privileged that we get to talk to these people not only on the show, but also, after the show as well. So I think we love it just as much as everyone else does.
Well, and that's the thing, right? It keeps us coming back, right? I mean, it as much as I am not a morning person. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And I think the first episode 1, I think I woke up at 4 a.m. or something like that to record that.
That's right. Yeah. And we had Dan, who was New Zealand, and that's even a worse time zone than Australia and Canada, right?
Yeah, it was not fun. But yeah, between Phil, myself, I think usually one of us gets a short end of the stick in terms of who has to either go to bed super late usually one is going to bed super late and one's waking up super early. Or sometimes I complain. Phil's very accommodating in the sense that I'm typically waking up on my weekends at 8, which again, having no children is still early for me. But it is what it is. I'll deal with it, right? And
we try. I try to share the load as much as I can, but sometimes and depending on when we go into daylight savings time, then for 6 months of the year it works better for us. 6 months of the year it doesn't work as well for us. I mean, I remember someone commented once, "You should both be in the same room." Well, Yeah, that'd be nice. We'll fly business class each month, right?
I'd love to. Yeah, that's it. But it is what it. I mean, they're not wrong. I would love to be in the same room, but again, there's a slight geographical difficulty we have. But yeah,
and Troy does make a good point, and we do try to accommodate for guests as well. Especially Europe does make it hard. I think having to triangulate a time zone, across 3 time zones, it does get tricky. So, I think and that's probably a good point to why the monthly release schedule is going to work better for us, Rohan, because we'll have more flexibility in terms of when we can record. I know last year we missed out on a few guests because the weekend that the release fell meant that they were, out of town that weekend or whatever, and the time zones just wouldn't work. So, fingers crossed. I mean, we said this last year too, but fingers crossed that we'll have more episodes for 2021.
That's it.
And a couple of live ones thrown in for good effect.
Yeah, I know. A lot of comments here today. Live ones seem to be, so we'll have, I think, maybe we'll do a few release episodes live. I know Paulus and Frank have sort of kicked off that on Twitter as well, so we don't want to cut their grass though, right? Too many live streams.
That's right. But yeah, I mean that's something that might be kind of interesting for Phil and I to tackle as well.
Yeah, and we also have to keep in mind that not every guest is accommodating as you, James, and is happy to come onto a live, session with everyone around. So we have to be careful with that as well.
Yeah,
and I gotta say, James, you again, and I know we've kind of we talk offline once in a while too, and in terms of growing, right? I think you've done a tremendous job. I remember the first time you messaged us and you were like, "Hey man, I'm super nervous. I'm super, like whatever." And this time we're like, "Hey man, do you want to come do this with us?" And you're like, "Yeah, totally." Right? So it's I think credit there too, James, to you.
Thanks.
So.
Next time there won't be moving boxes behind me and tackle all around, and we'll get the camera on as well, right? And we'll play Guess Who's in James's background.
That's right. Though I think you were, if I remember correctly, you were on video last time. So, confirm that James is a real human being. So
we've vetted him. Don't worry, he's real.
That's right.
He's not this, from the future that's got his kids using cryptocurrency to earn rewards for ice creams on the weekend.
That's 2021.
That's right. That's right. I think somebody mentioned James Coin up above in the chat. So
before closing off, there's obviously the great work that you do with the podcast. There's the release cycles and stuff. What have you both done that's impacted your lives? I know Phil's had a significant change in his world this year that's probably disrupted his automations a little bit and brought some new edge cases along. What's your call outs?
Okay, so I think I was very blessed to have a little daughter this year, my first daughter, and she was a great podcaster. She made sure that she was delivered in an off week, so we didn't have to adjust our schedule too much. I had Frank on standby in case I couldn't make it, but no, she came right when we wanted her to. So I've had a lot of fun automating things for her. I've done things around the Amazon Echo Media Player. I won't say her name. I almost did. The Amazon Echo Media Player component. Basically, I can tell the little lady there, turn on nap time, and depending on what room that is set in, will, basically close the blinds, turn off the lights in that room, as opposed, so it's contextually aware of where it is. So I think that has been a game changer. I've also put a lot of Zigbee buttons around the house, to track how many times we've had to change her nappy. That has unfortunately stopped now because it's just too frequent, so we can't be bothered doing it anymore. As happens.
Does that tie back to your Grossi?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I think it just becomes too variable. Yes, you can mark one nappy off, but then of course, as soon as you take a nappy off, and then it's time. Oh, the nappy's off. Now are we? And then you've used 2 nappies, and it just becomes it doesn't become reliable data anymore. So we've stopped that. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest change to me, and something that I've had fun doing. I think I got to a point this year where with the pandemic and being a bit cautious on spending money, I think, especially with a newborn on its way, I sort of didn't have any new gadgets to automate. So, having the ability to use existing stuff around the house and just finding new ways to automate what's already here has been really fun.
Yeah.
Brian, what about you? What have you done this year that's really stood out to you?
Not a whole lot, man. No, I don't know. In terms of me, again, it's been more just same thing, right? Pandemic's kind of given me a little bit of time to fix up some stuff and redo some stuff, and I changed teams at work as well. So now that means I had to pick up a bunch of other stuff, but I'm also trying to see how I can integrate some of that into my day-to-day with Home Assistant as well, right? So I think for me, it was a lot more just maintenance that I had just kind of ignored over stuff. What did I do? Some of the big things I ended up doing with Home Assistant specifically were I got rid of my Raspberry Pi. So I had a second Home Assistant which is running my Zigbee network. I got rid of that because it was just too unreliable for me. Took it off, moved it all to my my single Home Assistant instance, which is running on a container on a server, and that took up. I actually learned quite a bit with that with Docker and stuff like that as well, and which is great. So I think that was really the big thing. Just changing up a bunch of my network and redoing some things, and then couple of days ago decided to re-IP my Lutron controller, which ended up breaking everything and it's still not fixed. So right now none of my lights turn on. No. So it was which is always fun. So it's just this constant.
And that's the joy of home automation, right? As soon as you change something little, it has a knock-on effect, right?
That's right. And and that's it. So I've been doing a bunch of that kind of thing. I've been wanting to jump in a little bit in terms of like, hey, let me try and leverage this API to do whatever else. So, that kind of thing, which gone too far because some of that stuff just started like a month ago. And really it's just around me trying to figure out what I want to do and where I want to go first and then do that. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been as productive as yours, Phil. It's for sure. How about you, James? I know you mentioned you're moving.
It's been quite the year for me. I certainly had quite the ride after joining you both on the podcast. So I've done some crazy stuff with hot tubs and the barbecue out in the garden, through to just hardening some of the automation that I have. So I'm leveraging zones a lot more with some of my presence. So just integrating more of the great integrations that Home Assistant has with what I do, and then having some fun with projects. So Halloween was fun in this little community that I live in. There's a few hundred of us in a few streets, and we've got a WhatsApp group, and we kind of said, look, let's not have the kids knock on front doors. Let's do something that was more of a treasure hunt. And when I heard the word treasure hunt and Halloween, I thought, right, if kids are coming around looking for a little ladder, I've got to spice something up with lights. And I brought smoke machine and had moving effects and stuff. And it was just beautiful to see the joy in the kids. The sweets are getting thrown at them and smoke's going off and spooky music's playing, and just to link all of that together so easily. And the word easily there is this was knocked together over one or two evenings in the week up to Halloween. To see it have such an impact over all the kids in the community was beautiful. And then, I think for me, the second half of this year has been really tough with work and increased priorities. So it's really been fixing bugs and driving home fixes to stuff that maybe have failed on my part. So it leads nicely into how do you prioritize your stuff, right? So we're all increasingly in demand across work and personal lives. What's the thing that makes you think, right, I'm going to sit down this evening or this weekend or today and go, right, I'm going to build this or work on that or fix this issue? How do you prioritize that in your Home Assistant worlds?
Whoever yells the loudest.
Yeah. really, that's what it comes down to.
I think whatever frustrates me the most at the time. I think so. Last night, so I got up early this morning for the conference, and then when I got up, I noticed there was a couple of lights still on, and they shouldn't have been on, right? Like, so I that'll like I've thought about it, but now I probably won't get to that for until it really annoys me, right? Like if I'm sleeping and they're left on, it's not going to annoy me. But if I'm, sitting in a room and the lights go off, then damn, like that's going to really frustrate me. So then I'll prioritize that. But I think, yeah, that's really like whatever really annoys me the most is how I prioritize it in terms of bug fixes, in terms of features. I don't know. It depends what cool things I see on Twitter or Reddit, really.
Do you track those when you see them? Do you go, right, I'm just going to make a mental bookmark or post that to sort of Evernote or OneNote or something?
I make a mental bookmark, and then the next day I'll forget about it. And then I'll see it in a few months' time and go, oh, that's really cool. I remember I was going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, right? Or if I'm buying something like, if I'm buying whatever, will it work? Great. If it does, then, or if it's a smart something or the other, then cool. Then I'll bring it into Home Assistant. And
yeah.
But Phil and I were talking about this. A lot of my purchasing decisions are also based around, and it sounds like yours as well, Phil, is based around, will it integrate with Home Assistant, right? And based on that, that's, why not, right? And there's certain things that like sometimes it's great. So, I mean, things that do integrate, I end up having, a blast with, right? And just saying, okay, cool. What else can I do with this, right? And I start looking up use cases and starting to see what people are doing. And this is stuff I do at like 2 a.m. when I probably should be doing, well, nothing and sleeping. But on a weekday, right? So it's like, okay.
I'll open my phone and I'll see all the tabs that I have open in my browser, and it'll be like, some rant, like I'll be Googling, like integration name -API, integration name -Home Assistant or something like that. Just because, you see someone using it, like, all right, how can I get this, right?
Yeah, I've also learned to look quite a bit for, what doesn't work with that integration, right? Before I buy something. And
which can be hard.
Well, that's it. Well, I was going to buy a TP-Link outdoor, what is it called? Smart switch or smart plug. Mm-hmm. And, that was the day the advisory came out. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll hold up on this one, right? And then now, obviously, it's okay, just give them a shout and whatever. And then the sale ended. So I was like, okay, guess I'm not buying that.
Yeah, bad timing on their part.
Yeah. So,
and does new features change your mind on your investment? So for me, I'm using Ring as an alarm and cameras, but as I've dug into some of the iOS features of the app and being able to stream a camera, it made me buy. I found some incredible RTSP cameras or have it with an RTSP feed, and just being able to get that notification, hit it with the push press and see the live feed. I don't have to open an app. I don't have to interact with it. It's just there. And it's like, well, do I sell my Ring equipment and get better devices? Yes, for one thing. But how often do we go through these cycles of change and development and change for the better, right? We're getting far greater things out of technology now than maybe a year or two, and the suppliers are certainly going for that cloud model where they want you to subscribe.
Absolutely. I think Dr. Z's Dr. Zed's just put in the comments very nicely, if there's no RTSP, then he's not going to buy it. And I think that is absolutely fair.
I think back in the day, I didn't care as much. Now I do, right? But at the same time, like again, I have a Ring doorbell, right? But am I going to go rip it out? Probably not. No. Maybe. I mean, if there's if whatever is replacing it is, inexpensive at the time or like, a great sale or it's given to me or whatever, sure, absolutely I will, right? But I also know that I'm really bad at selling things. So it's literally just going to sit in my basement and rot until I need a new round of whatever.
Everyone's got the box of home automation gadgets they haven't integrated yet.
I've got a basement full of it. So
yeah.
Marley's got a good point. It's that balancing of replacement as well. Think of the environmental damage that we're doing in that replacement, but also
that's exactly right.
think of the security changes that happen between devices and protection. And that point about privacy I made earlier. Does that Nets device give you better privacy or less? And I think that's an important factor is the sustainability of this world that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that reason, especially if it's and exactly what I said about the Ring, right? But plus one to that, right? Like, essentially, like, I'm not gonna just throw something away, not only for the money part of it, and not only because I've already spent that money, but it's also because, what kind of damage is it doing? If it's something like, again, like, that's not going to cause that damage and going to greatly improve my quality of life, sure, I'll weigh it, right? But yeah, I don't know that it's going to be like, I wouldn't just rip something out for the sake of ripping it out.
Yeah. Ronald has just asked, what do you guys think are the best doorbells with RTSP? I think I had a friend ask me yesterday, I see you got the Ring camera. Do you recommend it? The Ring comes with subscription, no RTSP. I don't recommend it anymore. It's, if the internet goes out, the Ring camera doesn't work anymore. Like, the Ring doorbell doesn't work anymore. So I think Eufy have, and I could be wrong, I may have read it somewhere, that Eufy has local access only. Otherwise, yeah, I think maybe just even rolling your own if you have the skills to do it, something with like an ESP button and a camera or something like that. But yeah, and as Marley just said, Doorbird as well, it does get expensive. But
Amcrest.
Yeah, I think doorbells are like I think they're a bit tricky at the moment.
Yeah,
like, there's no real best solution.
If I was to lean in and replace some of the hardware that I've got, I would be definitely going down the Z's route and going RTSP, and think of the integration that I have, whether it's through a stream with my notification on my phone, through to the pop-up on my telly, and being able to grab a snapshot from the feed. Just being able to access that stream is so important. And one of the other things I've messed around with this probably this quarter even, is and getting more local image recognition and going, and the limitations that Ring's presented me kind of led me to go out there and mess around with a couple of cheap cameras to see the impact and disturbance that it will have on some of my other equipment.
Yeah, and I think if I was to redo it today, I may literally just DIY it. Right? I mean, there's some people that have got some great tutorials and stuff on, and I think somebody mentioned ESP Cam. And things like that I think are great alternatives, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Jason just asked
$20.
Yeah, Jason just asked, AWS Sidewalk terrifying or just regularly scary? What do you think?
Scary. And that's that privacy point for me, is being able to have some control over this. And some routers in the UK used to come preloaded from the ISPs, where they'd have an open network for their customers to join, and they would piggyback on your connection. All of that stuff is something that would really, really worry me. And more recently, I think I consider privacy more than accessibility, in terms of, can I get it on that device and that device over where the data is.
I think from my point of view, I understand, like, from a technical point of view, like, they can make it secure, and I understand, like, it's fantastic from their side. What I didn't appreciate was that it was forced upon everyone. It was this is happening to your device, deal with it sort of thing. There was no, I think from a public relations marketing perspective, Amazon really dropped the ball here. And I think, for once again, we talk about this, in terms of, TP-Link or Logitech Philips Hue, reaching into your home and disabling something that you use. Well, this is the opposite. This is Amazon reaching into your home and opening up their devices to communicate and use your internet, basically. So I think, with everything being cloud connected and a firmware update away, I think it just reminds everyone of, we are really renting these IoT devices from their manufacturers while there is firmware updates. So I think that's where Amazon's really dropped the ball for me.
Yeah, and so Carlo brings up a good point, which is, the only way for it to work is if it's opt out, and most users aren't savvy enough to turn it on, which I do agree with, right? But I think my issue with the whole thing is, I don't know that, just simply how quickly they made the decision to do something like this, and maybe today it's private and today it's, whatever, right? Like it aims to protect my network, my home, whatever. I don't know that tomorrow that's not, or that will be the case still, right? And the thing is that it can change on the fly. So I think there's some level of discomfort, right? And I think the other thing is also, it comes back to, if I fat finger something, that's on me. If you fat finger something, that's on you, but it's affecting me.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You being, whether, in this specific case, it might be AWS Sidewalk, but it might be somebody else that's doing something else, right?
One thing I will just, and as a PSA for everyone, because Andrea's just sort of mentioned, disable it immediately. I also disabled Sidewalk immediately as well. Well, actually, when I logged in to my Amazon app, it was already disabled. So it was a bit confusing. Amazon sent out an email saying, we're going to enable it. And then a few weeks later, they have started slowly enabling it for people. So if you already have checked your Amazon app and it is disabled in your account, go and check it again, just to make sure that they haven't turned it back on, because I know that's what they were doing.
Right.
Which also, left that really bad flavor in my mouth, right?
85 people are now opening their Alexa app and checking their privacy.
That's it, right?
That's it. But
yeah.
What devices use Amazon Sidewalk? I believe it's all of the Echoes. I don't know.
Yeah, all the Amazon Echoes, and there is, I believe, the Ring. Anything in the Amazon ecosystem, basically. So Ring doorbells can also use it, and then all the Ring stick-up cameras as well. Anything. That,
okay.
Yeah.
Peter clarified it's Echo Gen 3 and over. Okay.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, basically, I think it's a way for Amazon to create their own mesh Wi-Fi system, which works well if you have spotty Wi-Fi in your home and you can tap off a neighbor's access point that's closer to your outdoor camera, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit like, I don't like the idea of my Netflix being slow because my neighbor's piggybacking off my Wi-Fi through my Amazon Echo.
Yeah. It is what it is, but I would turn it off. Well, I did turn it off, or I plan to turn it off, whatever.
Just don't
return it off.
Forget about it, right? Yeah, turn it off again.
I definitely remember. No. No, it's I did look, and I'm going to take a second look for your concern, Phil. I think that's a good call out. Right. So, all right. What open alternatives exist for Amazon Echoes? We'll just take this one as a last one.
Oh, that's a good question.
There was,
actually,
there was one that a couple of people were looking at.
Well, because remember there was Snips, which then got bought out by Sonos.
It got cut.
And they said, nah, we're keeping Snips for ourselves.
There was one other one that was Mycroft has been called out as an example, and then there's Almond. So thanks for sharing those.
Almond made that, Home Assistant made that really big announcement about the Almond integration. I was actually a bit disappointed that at this year's conference it didn't get an update. I was hoping that was going to be, their next big thing as well, right? Because I think that is, a very exciting project, particularly with machine learning going into that space as well. But yeah, I think the problem with local voice control is that, and to Dr. Zed's point here, that, once you get to local control, it really is based on the processing power of your computer and how well those local voice processing systems can act, right? And I think that's where the cloud really is required here, because there's so many, different people and machine learning that can make them really accurate, right?
Yeah, and Carlos got a good point too, which is the bar is set very high.
Okay.
Well, did the event just end? Well, hopefully people can hear us.
Well, James.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm alone. So welcome to the Rohan podcast. All right. I don't know what happened to Phil, and hopefully I don't get kicked out as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it is difficult.
Yo.
Hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Frank is. Oh, voice is back. Okay, cool. Frank just messaged me saying, I don't know what happened, and we're trying to let James back in. I did add him
There's
back.
James.
There we go.
Hey. Session feedback.
Apparently, Stone Obscurity can't hear me. Can you still hear me now, Stone Obscurity? Hopefully.
We said this was going to be live. It was going to be raw. There was going to be mistakes. We weren't wrong.
Yeah.
We weren't wrong.
I'm gonna try reconnecting as well as everybody's suggesting. Give me a sec.
All right, no problem. I think everyone who is that has managed to stay or has come back, because I know looks like the number of viewers has dropped down as well.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So hopefully now everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So I forgot what we're talking about. I think we're talking about Almond and how disappointing it was. And
yeah.
I think there's still some merit to the platform. Just so none of this stuff is going to be recorded. I think maybe it will. I don't know.
I'm recording. I will put it in.
Okay, perfect. We will do that. Oh, I think my audio is still going
Unquote.
too, so we're good. All right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And I think there is. I mean, Phil, to your point, I think having that local voice control also means that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get updated. There's a lot of stuff that's, it stays very static, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think, and Carlo had actually mentioned that, the big players have kind of made it really hard, right? To, they've set the bar really high, essentially.
Yeah.
And
because you expect it to work, right? Like if you come into a home and start talking to the speaker and it doesn't understand you, well, what's the point, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of agree. Like I can't disagree with that. I think that makes perfect sense.
And I think, Ryan, you rely a lot on voice in your home as a control input, right? So if it's not accurate enough, then what's the point? Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, like my girlfriend gets upset enough when the Amazon Echo doesn't reply back when she says her name and like the trigger word and whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Let alone something that's not set, right? Or that has no kind of intelligence behind it. Or maybe there's intelligence. I guess that's not fair. I'm sure some of these have more intelligence than maybe Amazon is offering and things like that, but it's still, I think at the end of the day, especially if it's open source hardware and things like that, I mean, the mic is only going to be so good and whatever, right? Until a lot of that stuff can come in and basically overthrow the Amazon Echo and Google Homes of the world, which I do think there's a complete possibility for. I just don't think it's there.
Yeah, and Stone's right.
See, I use mine for interrupts. So interrupt and intervention. So if I want to change the music or change the lights, then I'll intervene with the voice assistant in the room.
Yeah.
But I still go with automation as my primary driver for all of my behavior in my home. And then probably third is an app, or more recently I'm kind of falling back to tags, so a series of tags around the home. That's probably my third interaction, and the app and Lovelace is now falling to fourth in how I kind of plan things out.
Yeah, no,
absolutely. Tags being able to bring the physical world into Home Assistant is just like a game changer.
Yeah, that's it. Philip brings in a more philosophical view of the voice assistant. I'm terrified of the fact that a machine can talk to me. Sometimes, you know what really creeped me out is I forgot that like whisper mode was a thing or whatever.
Oh, yes.
I think one day I was kind of like, because I think it was like 3 a.m. or something like that, right? I was working or something like that, and whatever. And I'm going to bed, and my girlfriend's gone to bed, whatever, and I'm on my way. And I was like, I don't want to wake her up, so I'm not going to be like, hey, turn off the lights. Yeah. Right. So I whispered it, and she whispered back, and I just got this just like the shiver that went up my spine. I was like, wow, oh my god,
3 a.m.
Yeah. Just saying, replying good night back to me, and I was like, okay, that's the end of this one. I'll just turn the volume down. Yeah, and I can't deal with that. Oh man. All right.
So I guess that's pretty much going to wrap us up. I think that little interruption there was probably a good breaking point anyway. But I think, Ryan, this is 2020 done. I think we're going to be glad to see the end of this year with the pandemic and everything.
That's it.
Rohan's out of here. He's like whacking his microphone. He's done. He's ready to pack up for the year.
That's right. Just smack the mic over. No, I think. No, I agree, and I mean, I think I'm looking forward to 2021 and looking forward to reconnecting with the community then. And when the next release is back, we'll be back.
That's right. James, thanks so much for coming on and being our buddy here to monitor the comments while we're doing our thing. We've had a lot of technical issues. It's our first live one, but I think we got there all right.
That's right. I think we did decent.
Yeah, thanks for everything you both do. And if you can hear it through the mic boom, I'm raising my glass to you at 11:15 on a Sunday evening. Thank you.
Frank's also just popped a beer as well.
Not just to yourselves, but to the whole community, right? It's totally. An amazing place to be part of and contribute and learn from others. So thanks for everyone joining and everything that you all do.
Yeah, and thanks, and I think a big congratulations to everyone in the Home Assistant community, all the developers, for reaching 1.0. It was short-lived. Frank, poo-pooed that very quickly, but we did get 1.0 for a couple of weeks at least, or a week at least, to see Home Assistant 1.0 in the release notes section. So big up to everyone. 2021 is going to be great, and I think it's going to be a redefining year for Home Assistant moving forward.
Totally agreed. And again, seconded, thank you, James, and thank you to the entire community for doing everything you guys do.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks.
All right. I will cut the recording there. So
Now you've got the outtakes and backstage.
I've got everything.
That's right.
That's it. We'll follow up with Frank and see how, because it does say recording up here, so I don't know what that's recording. This session is being recorded. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, if it is, that'd be great. Then I can just.
That'd be perfect. Yeah,
Or we
but hold on to
pull
your
that.
backup just in case. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally plan to. All right, and for everybody else that's still the 113 people that's still connected, this is what happens behind the scenes. We're like,
Okay, so now what?
We don't have to redo this recording. Yeah.
No. Yeah, this is the time where our heart drops when we realize, crap, we didn't hit the record button, or the record didn't work, and we have to do all over again.
That's right. And that's,
So now this is the social side of the podcast, right? It's outtakes and backstage.
that's right. That's right. I think Robert called it, it's a backstage pass, which is, and there's been tools that we've used, and we famously tell this to some of our guests as well that join us on the podcast, which is, there's always a chance that we may have to re-record because like we've had the silliest things. SSL certificates change halfway through
Oh my gosh.
our recordings, and that means the recording didn't record. Right? And it's just,
Or we couldn't stop the
stupidest
recording,
things.
right? Like
that was another
SSL
one. We couldn't
certificate
stop the recording.
was changed, so we couldn't stop the recording. So I couldn't tell the browser on the other end to stop recording and send me the audio. So yeah,
That's right.
we've had our fair share of issues.
Yeah, and it's that kind of thing. So it's always fun. All right, there's a lot of no you hang up. All right.
How's the calendar looking for the next year? There's Andy's got a question on. I'm carrying on, by the way. I'm just going to keep
Okay,
going.
good. You'll just keep going.
Ending end. Yeah, great.
So we've actually been very blessed. We've actually had like 6 or 7 episodes in front of people that booked up, and now with the changes to the release schedule, I think that's going to allow us to, just get in touch with everyone that's on the list already, and come in for recording. It also gives us a bit more flexibility, and instead of having to wait 3 weeks to get you in on an episode, we can get you in quicker. So if anyone is still here and they are interested in coming on as a guest, we're more than happy. We love talking to people. So feedback@haspodcast.io. Let us know. We do monitor that email. We will schedule you in at some point.
Phil,
Yeah.
all over that. You both are really organised. I must compliment you on that for the second time now. That
I am not organized at all. I will say this all Phil.
I wrangle Rohan into submission. I go, we're doing it this day, be
That's
there. And he's like, okay, so
literally, and I am the worst at getting back to Phil about dates and stuff, because we'll send out based on and you've done it, James. I mean, based on availability, what's your availability like, whatever. And my thing is always like, because sometimes it's like, my calendar looks open, great, and then next thing you know, a customer puts something in there in my calendar, and off I go. And obviously customer stuff, again, it's work, right? It comes first, and a lot of times it's hard to wrangle that, and Phil's been really good at being like, hey, you didn't do it yet. Okay, hey, you still haven't done it yet. Yeah, so Phil's definitely the perfect person that I need to kind of help me do that, and just to kind of wrangle me in place here. Roberto asked, what's my day job? I am a systems engineer for a networking company. So I design networks, Cisco specifically.
That's why he's got such a good Wi-Fi network at his house.
That's right.
All right, I need some breakfast, guys, so I'm going to hang up.
All right.
First. So
Sounds
thank you,
good.
everyone. James, once again, thanks so much. We'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.
That's right.
Take
and
care.
Vincent, yes, Meraki.
Stay safe.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
See you guys.
Stay safe. Bye.
Cheers.